Well, good evening, everyone. Michael, soothing here. I feel a little bit like Father Sarducci with this hat, if you know who that is. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about celestial objects, mainly Comet NEOWISE, and some other comets I've seen. I went out and saw the comet. Here's a photo of it. I didn't take the photo. And it wasn't quite this impressive to the naked eye when we viewed it last night, but we had to use binoculars really to spot it. And then once you knew where it was, you could see it with the naked eye a little bit too. But it was interesting and impressive through the binoculars. So we'll talk about the comet, and we'll talk a little bit about stuff in this book. We will talk a little bit about this book, Backyard Astronomer's Guide, and some of the stuff in it that will be the topic of our conversation. So let me reorient the camera down to our field of view, and then we will first a little bit more water for the ice. This is actually diluted A&W root beer, because that's what I had in here. And there's a trace of it left behind. So it's water with a little bit of, don't you think it's tacky when people do that? I do. It's disgusting. Okay, hold on. Alright, the photo I printed wants to curl up a little bit. But let's talk about the Comet NEOWISE. Yeah, we went over to the local golf course where there's no light at night and got us up a little bit in elevation. And we were able to see it from there. Shortly after dusk, it will fade below the horizon if you wait too long. And where you want to look for it is down below the Big Dipper a few degrees. And it's either a little to the right or a little to the left. I think it's northwest as you drop down below the Big Dipper. So that's where you'll find it if you want to go look for it. But it's getting much fainter with each passing evening, because it's zipping back out into the outer solar system at high speed, and it already took its trip around the sun. So they're brightest usually when they're coming into the sun in their orbit. They make a big if this is the sun here, they make a big elliptical orbit around the sun, and then they go back out into the outer solar system for a long time, and then they come back 80 years later or 300 years later or whatever. In the case of this one, if it's getting too faint for you to see when you go look for it as it travels back out into space, no worries. You'll be able to look for it again when it comes back in about 6,800 years. So as long as you're a little bit patient, you could get a glimpse. I think it's interesting that the guy who took this photo with a long exposure time did it over a lake where he could get the reflection. Isn't that cool? And that's kind of appropriate because many astronomers and geophysicists believe that the water on Earth originally all came from comets, since a comet is basically a big ball of ice and dust. Alright, about half and half usually. This particular comet may have a sodium tail, they believe, also, as well as the normal ion tail and water and dust tail that comes off of it. You may think that the comet is speeding this way with the tail going out behind it. A lot of people have that erroneous idea, but the reality is, as it travels away from the sun, it's the sun direction that's pushing the stuff away. It's usually the tail is emanating away from, you can kind of see where the sunset here, give you an idea. And this comet will be a little higher in the sky each night until the end of July, when you won't be able to see it anymore. As it zooms back, let me tell you a few little facts about NEOWISE, the comet. You wonder, why is it a WISE comet? Why is it called NEOWISE? That's actually an acronym. It was not discovered by a telescope on Earth, and it was very recently discovered. By the way, March 27th of this year is when they first spotted it. It was unexpected. They spotted it not using an Earth telescope. It's called NEOWISE because they spotted it with a space telescope that's up in orbit, 300 some plus miles. It's called the Near Earth Object Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer, the capital letters of which spell NEOWISE. So that's how it got its name. All right. It already passed around the sun, and it's heading back out into the outer solar system. It passed by the sun on July 3rd. It wanted to celebrate 4th of July, so it made its pass and had its best tail at that time. Now it's going back way into the solar system. You can see it with the naked eye, but just barely. As I mentioned, I used binoculars to find it, and then was able to see it once I knew where it was. How much water would be in this ball, this little ball of ice and dust, which, by the way, is about 3 miles across if you can measure that little ball. That's the comet itself, not the tail. About 3 miles across. That would contain approximately 13 million Olympic swimming pools of water, okay, calculated. Plus or minus a gallon or two, I would say. You know, and so that's quite a bit of water, but even at that, I don't know how many trillions of comets it would take to fill up all the oceans of the Earth, so I'm not so sure how long the early bombardment was that gave us comets, that gave us oceans. How fast is it going, that comet, as it speeds back into space? It's going about not 40 miles an hour, it's going about 40 miles per second, actually. So that would be about 144,000 miles per hour. And that's about 231,000 kilometers per hour, for those of you using scientific measurement criteria. And it's more than 70 million miles away from Earth and heading away from us. So we don't really have to worry about a close encounter. But I think the comet should have a radar detector if it's going that fast, because they're going to want to give that thing a ticket. Now, what else can we learn about comets from our big book? It says here in this big book, comets are agglomerations. Can you say that 10 times fast? Agglomerations of ice impregnated with dust. The ice has been getting naughty because it's impregnated with dust. Not glacier type ice, more like a pile of dirty snow. about the size of a small city. Yeah, comets orbit the sun like planets do, but in a much more exaggerated and elongated path. So, if the farthest out planet, let's go here where you can see the sun better. I got some shadows here. If the planets are going around here, like the farthest out one is here going around, right? The comet comes from way, way, city blocks away from here, comes in, makes a loop, and goes way back off into space again in a great big looping exaggerated orbit, not a circular orbit, great big loop. So, and they have long orbital periods. This is the little thing you get at Safeway, and if you get a gold one, it's worth like, I don't know, $100 or something. So Joanne collects these and hopes to find. Wait, I have to hold it like this because otherwise it will be upside down to you when I invert the camera image in post-production, so that we're not upside down, which I sometimes forget to do. All right. Apart from a few exceptions, comets are named for their discoverers. Comet Hale-Bopp, for example, was spotted on the same night in July of 1995 by New Mexico comet hunter Alan Hale and amateur astronomer, it's 3 times I've done that, Tom Bopp of Arizona. Hale-Bopp was an interesting comet because it spawned the Heaven's Gate cult, a little group of people that thought that Hale-Bopp had a big UFO traveling behind it that was hidden. Some crazy guy convinced this little cult of that, so they all literally drank the Kool-Aid, not metaphorically but literally drank the cyanide-laced Kool-Aid so they could fly up and their souls could go join up with the aliens on the UFO behind Comet Hale-Bopp. Somebody out there will remember the crazy guy's name. Just look on the internet, Hale-Bopp Heaven's Gate cult, and you'll see the wild-eyed schizo that convinced his followers to all commit mass. But anyway, let's get off depressing topics and back to comets. Comets boast tails easily visible to the unaided eye are relatively rare, averaging 2 per decade, but that is just an average. We haven't seen any, by the way, in a long time, until now. Well, here's Hale-Bopp right here. Let's get this image in view a little bit better for you. I don't know how I'm going to hold it up there because it's not in view to you. And let's see, we can flip it around and kind of put it up by the camera. There's Hale-Bopp. A little close-up. It had an interesting split tail. Do you see the blue going in one direction and the pinkish white in another? I remember it was so bright. I used to go out and look at it every night. When I would get off work, it was so bright. It was the brightest, other than the moon, it was the brightest object in the night sky. You could see it before sunset because it was so bright. Let's see, here's a bright comets from 1957 to 2007. Comet Halley came in 1986, but it wasn't very spectacular like in past decades when it had come. It comes every 80 years or something. Time for a sip of the delicious root beer polluted ice water. I just need that for lubricious purposes now and then. Did I get a little on my page? Let's see. They talk about some comets people were able to see, but they weren't very spectacular. Comet Kohoutek will always be remembered as the comet that fizzled. They hyped it, I remember that. They hyped it and hyped it and hyped it, and then no one could see it. So they thought it would be a really spectacular, bright comet, but it wasn't. Hale-Bopp was great, though. But another one I remember seeing in the night sky, here's a better photo of Hale-Bopp, so you can see how fat the tail was and the blue part coming off. Another one was Haikataki. I don't know. Haikataki. It was named after, I think, a Japanese comet hunter. And after a long drought, this comet made an appearance in the spring of 1996. It had a big long tail, and I remember seeing it. We went to a really dark place in the mountains to check it out, and it was easy to see with the naked eye. With the Kohoutek fiasco fresh in their minds, news editors had ignored Comet West. I don't know that one. So few people beyond amateur astronomy community even knew about it. I guess what happened with Comet West. It became very bright, apparently. A beautiful comet sported a dust tail, 30 degrees long, adorned the pre-dawn sky. By the way, NEOWISE is visible in the very early morning, just prior to dawn, but that's too early for me to get up, so I looked at it in the night sky instead, just before total dark, or just after total dark. Then it sets after a little bit after that. What else can we say about Comet? Comet Holmes. Hey Holmes. Hey Holmes. This one. That would be an interesting kind of comet. It's got a greenish blue halo around it. Comet Holmes. Normally faint comet exploded into brilliance by a factor of 1,000,000, becoming visible to the unaided eye, even from city limits, as a fuzzy star in Perseus. Comet Holmes. This was October 2007. I don't remember that one. I must have been busy. What was I doing then? I'm not telling. October 2007. I think I was up to no good. That must be why I missed it. Discovering a comet. Anyway, I won't go into too much more detail about comets other than it's interesting to look for them when they're there, because they're kind of rare to see for the unaided eye or through binoculars. Some people believe that comets are harbingers of good luck or terrible luck or something bad gonna happen, or signs and wonders in the sky ushering in the end times. But this is a little bit of Merlot because I have to keep my blood fairly thick and not let it be too thin. Strictly medicinal as always, followed by a little bit of ice water. Do you like the sound of the ice? I do. I've watched ASMR ice water videos from time to time, and somebody told me they just wanted the sound of the ice cubes only, you know. but I don't usually do sounds only videos because I would get too bored and fall asleep. I want a telescope that will allow me to see Saturn like this. I have a nice little telescope that I can find Saturn in, but I can't see the rings. It's not that good. So, tens of thousands of years ago, prehistory's first Galileo would have noticed a few bright stars moving against the stellar background. The lure of other worlds. Mercury. That's the closest planet to the sun. It's heavily cratered like our moon and not much different in size, I believe. This is a flyby image from the Messenger spacecraft. I haven't done a flat Earth video in some time. I don't know if that's still a thing on the internet or not, whether it's growing or finally shrinking. I'm not sure. All I know is they might be the dumbest lunatics on Earth. That's it. Speaking of lunatics, let's find the moon. Here's Venus. When I was young, there was a song by some group called I'm Your Venus. I'm your fire and your desire. Who was that? It's a group called Shocking Blue or something like that. Shocking Pink. I can't remember. Crescent Venus. Mercury and Venus. It's easy to see if you know where to look at the right time of year. That photo has both of them. Mars is interesting. People used to think it was inhabited by Martians. Some people still think that because they look at stuff like the face on Mars like something you would see in a cloud, right? And imagine that someone put something there. But it's very unlikely to be inhabited since there's no breathable air and no water that we know of. There may be water under the Earth, though. They think there's some water buried under parts of Mars. Sometimes Mars is covered in a huge dust storm that obscures everything. Did you know that there's global warming on Mars and the ice caps have gotten smaller? It's a terrible thing. We need to tell the Martians to please stop using so many fossil fuels because their ice caps are shrinking at a frightening rate. So somebody please, send Greenpeace there or something so that, they'll stop melting their polar ice cap. Jupiter has a little ice cap too, see? Right there. I think Jupiter's is shrinking too. So the Jupitonians also need to stop burning so much fossil fuel. That nonsense. Look at this big eye right here. Do you know that there was a comet that crashed into Jupiter? It got pulled into many pieces first by the very strong gravity of Jupiter, and it made big explosions as it entered. And they could even see it with telescopes when those entered. I wonder if they have any photos of that. Here, I don't think so. Shadow trek. Here's a Hubble Space Telescope image. It shows the shadow of one of the moons going around Jupiter. Jupiter's moon Io. Io is one of the bigger moons, casts its shadow on the giant planet's clouds. You don't really see the surface of Jupiter. It's got like hundreds of miles or something of thick, poisonous atmosphere. This shows the 4 biggest satellites of Jupiter. If you heard a little bit of noise in the background, That was just your everyday riot on TV where one of our American cities is being burnt down because, I had the news on pause, and you know how it just restarts after an hour or something. Anyway, never mind that. What were we talking about? Oh, so interesting photos done by the Hubble Space Telescope. All faked, of course, if you happen to be a flat Earth lunatic. Lord of the Rings. Here's a very nice image of Saturn showing the shadow on the rings and everything. This was obtained with a somebody's backyard telescope and webcam. That's amazing to me. You can get a photo like that. And then here, of course, is what? I'm not going to make any bad jokes. I'll just point to it, and you can figure out what planet that is. I've made bad jokes in the past, but that gets so old, right? Finding your way around the sky. Yet when I'm up in space, I sometimes get lost because all the stars look alike to me, and I don't know how to navigate from one to another. So, but this thing has a laser pointer that shows you where stuff is. I want one of those telescopes where you just plug in an object into the keypad and it automatically uses its software to find that object in your telescope. I think Celestron and many other companies make stuff like that. Circumpolar trails using a time exposure. This is one of the ways you can prove to a flat earth. Oh wait, never mind. You can never prove anything to a flat earther, no matter what evidence you give them, because their minds are lead-lined vaults with only air inside, but nothing else of value. So, okay, here we go. The Sun and the Stars. The Earth's Orbital Trek. Autumn Ecliptic. Summer Ecliptic at Midnight. Sounds like the title of a movie, or, an interesting thriller drama film or something, mystery, or maybe a song. Summer Ecliptic at Midnight, right? The waxing moon. You didn't know that the moon had a problem with hair growth and had to be waxed sometimes, did you? But that's the waxing moon. And the waning moon, okay? So when the moon's getting bigger and bigger in its phases where you can see more of it, that is a waxing moon. When it's getting smaller and smaller, going away from full moon, that's a waning moon. The Big Dipper points to Polaris, the northern star. That's a handy way you can, which also is part of the Little Dipper. See, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but the Big Dipper points to the Little Dipper because the Little Dipper happens to be one of the Big Dipper's offspring, so it wants to point there. All right, let's see what else here. Spiral galaxies, star atlases. This book looks like the very book we're looking at, is it? No, but it's in the same series. Men, Monsters, and the Modern Universe. Does that all go together? I don't know. There's a lot of tips and techniques in this book how to take excellent sky and astronomical photographs. Someday I'll avail myself of all of this knowledge and try to get. The Oregon coast can be a good place to do it, but if you go to a dark part of it, like one of the bluffs overlooking the ocean, away from all this city light. But the problem is it's usually foggy or rainy, so you only have about, 20 or 25% of the year with a really clear night, maybe less than that. So you have to pick the right time. This looks like a side shot of the Milky Way. Yes, the center of our galaxy. We're actually out on one of the spiral arms of the galaxy, of the Milky Way. If the Milky Way has big spiral arms coming out of it, like this, with this dense hot core with billions of stars, billions and billions, and as Carl Sagan used to say, we would be way out here on one of the spiral arms, Earth, and our solar system and our sun. And the thing about that is, if we were in the center of the Milky Way and all of the trillions and quadrillions of miles of stars in here, where there's billions of stars, we wouldn't be able to see things in the night sky. We would be surrounded by bright white light everywhere from all those stars. We happen to be located in just the perfect place to be able to observe our universe, by the way. That's one of about several thousand things that you'll find out are interesting if you check out books like The Privileged Planet. I highly recommend it. The DSLR Revolution. I need to get a good DSLR camera if I'm ever going to take good astronomical photos. I got a new phone which has a better camera on it, but that's not even going to be remotely close. See, if you want to take photos of dim objects in the night sky, you need a big lens with a lot of light gathering capability and a camera that can do the job with a really good, accurate, charged couple device and so forth, and then a good telescope that will mate up to it, and the right set of accessories. You're talking about a lot of money, though. A relatively hefty sum. They have all kinds of equipment they talk about in here, and domes and shelters and things, so you can have your own little backyard telescope. Observatory. That's for people really hardcore into watching the night sky. Yes. The naked eye sky. The private eye sky. I see a solar eclipse there. Did you watch the solar eclipse that happened a few, not too many years ago now? How many? Was that 2.5 years ago in the summertime? 3 years ago, I think. Either 2 or 3. You tell me. I can't remember. We went and watched it. It was quite impressive. Probably the only full eclipse that I will see in my lifetime. I hadn't seen one before or since. Lots of things here about phenomena of the night sky. Why does the moon look so large when it's on the horizon, and then look a lot smaller when it gets higher up? Well, I'll tell you why. I don't know. No, actually I do. It has to do with perspective. Here is the technical explanation. Did you see it? Oh, you missed it? Too bad. We'll talk about it some other time. The best planetary conjunctions, 2008 to 2020. I guess this book must have been copyrighted, or this edition. Well, what's this photo? Let me make sure it's not proprietary. No, good. It's the first photo of a black hole. I did a video about it sometime or other long ago. When was this book copyrighted? 2007 maybe? It's the third edition. 2008. Okay, we were close. So what happens in 2020? Let's check that out. March 18th. We're too late for that one. How about December 21st? 4 days before Christmas this year, Jupiter and Saturn will be an amazing 6 arc minutes apart in the evening sky. That will be interesting because they're the two brightest planets that you might look at most of the time. And so they'll be very close together, and that will be strange. Moon-planet conjunctions happen sometimes, of course. Iridium flares, I've told you about those before. You can go to heavensabove.com to see when you can spot an iridium flare. It's impressive. Eclipses and transits. I'm going to wrap this up since I hear gastrointestinal disruption from the pizza we had for dinner starting to upset my stomach, and I would not want to hear gurgling noises of any kind on my video. So, yeah. Eclipses, what do we have? In South America, you'll have one this year on December 14th. South Pacific. Maybe a good time to go to the... Oh, we can't travel because of COVID. Dang. All right. Falling stars of summer. The Perseids meteor. Summer is in the Milky Way, the most popular of the year's 8 or so meteor showers. The Perseids are seen warm summer nights on August 11th or 12th. That's like the remnants of a comet tail that we pass through each year, by the way. That's what that meteor shower, or what causes it in general. So don't forget, August 11 and 12, look for that. I'm going to go write it in my calendar right now before I forget. All right, everyone, take care. Here's some other meteor showers. The Orionids on October 20th, the Leonids on November 17th, and the Geminids December 13 and 14. If you're a Gemini, you can check that one out. Take care, everyone. I hope this relaxed you a little bit. Don't ASMR and drive. Until next time, bye-bye.